Hey, so I wanted to talk about the power of paradigms and basically our mental models for how we view the world, how we interpret information, what conclusions we draw. They're really, really incredibly powerful. And the way we approach them is typically from a really fixed perspective. Generally speaking, people adopt a paradigm and then that's it. That's it, they done. And the really great thing is if we recognize like, oh, this is just basically a schema, it's a template, it's an operational model, right? That we can switch it out for different paradigms. It's a tool. We can use different tools for different stages of our life or activities or people or whatever. So the tricky thing is that we end up identifying with our paradigms and thinking like, oh, this is who I am. Like this, not only is this paradigm the one I'm using to operate in the world, but like this is who I am. And the problem is when something shows up that challenges that paradigm, because it feels like an attack on our identity. We don't want to like accept information that goes against that. Um, so then you end up with like a lot of denial. Or it can completely shatter you as a person and you're suddenly, completely unmoored and ungrounded. Um, so I have a couple of examples. The first one I'm thinking of, let's say, is let's talk about the current administration. So Donald Trump, regardless of your political ideology, he's a terrible person. That's not a good person. He's not good. And, and so, oh, let's go away. Um, so, but people are having to reconcile, like, I have this identity as a Republican. These are my set of values. Anyway, I noticed this paradigm thing with my son as well, and in the abuse community. So with my son, he gets very competitive, and he wants to win, like, which is we've all been there. We know what that's like. Um, and winning, feeds so many of the basic human needs. Actually, hold up, I have this right here. This is why I have a subreddit, so I can look stuff up. Okay, so Tony Robbins says the 6 basic human needs are certainty, comfort, variety, significance, connection and love, growth, and then contribution. I personally add autonomy, power onto that because people do have a need for autonomy and power. Sorry, Tony. But does being competitive meet a need for significance? Certainty and comfort, like that I'm a winner. Um, it it's just that significance piece, really. Wanting to feel special, like special and important and better than other people. It's you know, it's a useful tool. I'm not gonna lie, like feeling competitive can absolutely push us in like great directions if we use it right. So anyway, I'm watching my son. He's playing with his friends, and literally, bless him, every single time I'm like, I'm the best. I win everything, and I had to have a little chat with him, like, boo boo. Sometimes, you feeling competitive, yeah, that's me. That need to feel special, but are your friends gonna really want to hang out with you if you feeling special makes them always not feel special? If you're not recognizing that they're special people too. Like sometimes we want a cooperative paradigm. We don't want a competitive paradigm. So when he starts getting in that mode and I'm like, hey, but, is that the tool we need for right now? Like, do we need to be competitive? Are we building? Are we cooperative? Like, which one do we want right now? Because I certainly don't want him to never be competitive. But it's a tool. You know, uh, a lot of people identity build off of the Myers-Briggs, like they figure out their like type and they're like, okay, this is my type. And then use that as a tool to kind of explain to themselves like, oh, this explains how I am in the world. This explains how I interpret information. Uh, this helps me figure out the things that I need. Um, and I'm pretty sure, I think somebody referred to Myers-Briggs as like this sciencey people's version of horoscopes, which just it thrills me to my soul because even if it doesn't have any like let's say legitimate science around it, which I think there've been some studies that say something to the effect of like that's not a thing, but like again, people get very invested. Like this is my identity, this is who I am. But the reason I love the comparison to horoscopes or to like people who are into zodiac signs is like that's a different paradigm. Um, I'm a Virgo, I'm an Aries, I'm a Taurus, I'm a Sagittarius, I'm a whatever. We're in Mercury retrograde. Um, it's a different paradigm for interacting in the world, for processing information, for drawing conclusions. So the abuse community, we see this with the victim abuser dichotomy, um, where a long process is for someone who's the target or victim of abuse to even recognize that that's what's happening. So they don't even understand, like, oh man, someone's powering over me at my expense for their benefit, and that's hurting me, you know. Um, and so, finally getting to the point where we're like, oh no, I'm a victim. So like switching out a paradigm from being maybe, oh, I'm someone in love with a person who's just had a really hard childhood, and they're doing their best, you know, and they're just struggling with demons, to going, oh, this is what this is. So you switch out the paradigm. And then there's a paradigm shift as well from that person is just struggling with their demons and I'm trying to love them so hard to they're abusive. Um, the abuse community kind of goes real hardcore on that though. Like people will like switch hard. Like it's like, no, you're an abuser and like a bad person. And I mean, like legitimately, there are those people. Like let's get real. Like that exists. But maybe not always. But again, can be a useful paradigm because you know, if you can switch out your I'm in a relationship, and I'm supportive and loving and I don't give up paradigm, and you switch it out for like, oh no, I'm a victim of abuse, and you go, oh, okay, now I got to do something, you know, in the process of when you can do it. So like again, I love these different paradigms that we use. I just wish that we had a better sense of like they're tools, and then we can switch them out when we need to do something else. And I think this is where, uh, you know, like affirmations or mantras or goals or whatever it is. I think this is where that comes in. People are like trying to switch their internal paradigms, particularly, since we identify with them. We build our identity off of these paradigms. I'm a this, I am that way. But if you can kind of step back and go, okay, these are tools, and I don't have to identify with this tool. I can, you know, there's more flexibility, and it doesn't wreck you like on the inside when some shit goes down. Anyway, so one thing that one of the tools that I really love is from this book. It's called Personal Development for Smart People, and it's written by Steve Pavlina. Who he's really the person that I think got me thinking about like, oh, what are our mental models of the world, and like, can we switch them out? And so anyway, he comes up with this like system of explaining like components of how we are in the world, and I like deeply love it. Oh, I don't know if it's gonna show up. Okay, well, we'll try. There's a can you see it? Okay. So if you'll see at the top of the triangle is love. And then we've got truth and power on the bottom. And then not in the very center, but like along the lines, like between truth and power, truth and love, or love and power, or whatever, you've got other things. And so the way you look at this like model, this schema, is that when you have truth and love, where they overlap, is oneness. So if I have truth and oneness, or if I have truth and love, I've reached a sense of oneness. If I have love and power, I've got courage And then if I've got truth and power, I've got authority. So where those ways of being overlap. And one thing he points out is that if it's unbalanced, if you don't have all three, you end up acting in ways that are necessarily helpful. So for example, if you have truth and power and you're coming from a sense of authority and like I'm a right, but you don't have that love piece, you may end up being like really harsh and non-compassionate to other people and yourself. If you've got power and love, which overlaps to courage, you're a straight up Gryffindor. So you're so much power, so much courage, but like not necessarily any discernment. So just going really hard, but not necessarily in an effective direction. And then if you have love and truth, right? You're in a really tough position because what is power? Power is our ability to make things happen in the world. And so, you're like, oh, love, truth, oneness, and then we're afraid of power. Then people may power over us because part of being in our power is being able to, set boundaries, like back to boundaries again. Um, so one thing that I've been doing is I got like cards. I even made my own set of cards too. So some people use like tarot, which is fine. That's you do you. But like I got like they have other kinds of cards, and so I really like where are they? They're these where's the name of them? They're the Just One Thing deck. 52 practices for more happiness, love, and wisdom. Whatever. Anyway, but it's basic stuff. It's basically everything you've read on a listicle. But there's something for me about the process of like, oh, I'm sitting here, I'm shuffling my deck, like what's gonna come up? And for example, um, last time I did this, I got be home and make that offering. Like, are you holding back to what you contribute to others? Is this card? And then, feeling at home. Those are actually two really important things for me. But I've gotten like breath before and whatever. So it's really nice to kind of go through the process and then so this is like a fun, I feel like, tool. And so thinking of paradigms, some people are coming from a place of like, oh, the universe is guiding me. And giving me information. And then some people are coming from the paradigm of like, oh, this is just information about what my subconscious thinks is important. Either way you slice it, is it effective? Absolutely. So like this time, this card I got is Feel Whole, and it talks about awareness, and then gives like some examples of like how to nurture that and develop it. Let's see, I've got a different set of cards, which is more like it's more like a love set of cards, quite frankly. And I keep getting this purpose card. I don't know if you can see it. You possess the determination and dedication to consciously demonstrate love. Like, thanks, card. I sure am trying, and I don't always do my best. But like as I mentioned in another video, like that's definitely where I want to go. I've definitely been, if you look on that triangle, I've definitely been in like that truth, power, authority, and I haven't really balanced it out with like love for myself, for example. Just like being really focused on, what's true, what's accurate. How can I have power in a situation? Because I was, for a while in situations where either I didn't have power or I wasn't stepping into my power. I was waiting for other people to do a thing and treat me a certain way instead of, good boundaries. Like, God, it's annoying sometimes how it all like comes back around. Anyway, so one thing that C. Pavlina talks about is the way you can tell if your paradigms are accurate is how accurate your predictions are. So if your mental model of the world is an accurate mental model, then you're going to be able to predict what's going to happen with people or what's going to happen, in the future. So, obviously you've seen on the subreddit, I'm posting stuff. I'm posting stuff from a socio-political perspective, from an interpersonal relationship perspective, also a self perspective. Like we cover a lot of things because that's, like things correlate, but they're parallels because systems and patterns of thinking, can be uh, expressed institutionally, but still be the kinds of ways we overpower people, let's say in our relationships. So that's why I really enjoy like that very broad approach to looking at the world. So a very good example for me of adjusting my internal model of the world to make more accurate predictions. I did not used to be able to guess what my parents would do. And I was always in like a very high state of anxiety. I could never tell like was I gonna get was I gonna get really cool dad who would show up for me and like parent through this like really difficult thing, or was I gonna get scary, abusive, off his rocker dad who like the least little thing would trigger like this absolute rage. And it was like there was no telling which one you were gonna get. My mom, she was doing stuff that I just did not understand. I did not understand what the heck was going on with these people. Like for example, I was 16. I had been kicked out of my foster home. Oh, that's a fun story. So I went to the foster home because my dad tried to kill me. And then I get kicked out of the foster home for, honestly, like that was dumb. That wasn't on me. you know. And then so I'm like, well, I don't want to go back to my dad. Let me move in with my mom. Well, my mom was living with this guy, or not living with him, but she was dating this guy, and he'd come over, and apparently he said to her, oh, what if we had a threesome with you and your 16-year-old daughter? It would be like two Barbaras, or whatever my mom's name is. And and do you know why I know this? I know this because she told me. Right? Is that a thing that you should tell your child? Like, no. Somebody says that to you and you're like, get the fuck out. He'd never come back. Um, oh, like, oh my God, like I would never have been able to predict that. Like I was just very confused. Oh, she called the police on me one time because the same dude. So she's a night nurse. She goes to sleep and she really, really needs her rest. Like that was, that's hard. I mean, it's a hard job in and of itself. It's very hard to be on that schedule. Um, so he calls and I was like, oh, she's sleeping, but I can take a message and let her know that you called when, she wakes up. Um, and I guess she'd woken up with the phone rang. I was listening at the door. And when she heard me say that, she lost her mind. How I was trying to control who she talks to and all this stuff. And I'm looking at her like, what is happening right now? And then she calls the police and tells them I'm a runaway. And I'm literally looking right at her like, that's not even what is happening? This isn't even real. Like, what is going on? Um, and then I found out about cluster B personality disorders. So you're bipolar, you're borderline personality disorder, you're whatever. And like suddenly I was like, okay, I know what's going on now. And now I can accurately predict their behavior. I went from a place of not understanding what was going on, not being able to predict what they were going to do, living in a very state of high anxiety. It was like, okay, no, now I am not a professional. I cannot diagnose nobody. But I will say, that it gave me a lot of certainty, right? Back to the list of human needs. It gave me certainty and an ability to predict what's going on and an ability to keep myself safe. So this idea that Steve Pavlina has of, paying attention to our predictions as a method of assessing whether or not our paradigms, our models of the world are accurate. Like, what a powerful tool for becoming aware. Where's my awareness card? Building awareness in your life. Anyway, hope everyone's having a really great Tuesday, and I will see you next time.